Hello and welcome to this episode of the Humans of Horses podcast. My name is Elle and I'm the human of three wonderful horses, Fionn, Zirconia and Morgan. And with me today is Brittany. Brittany, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Brittany Ashworth. Like where to start? I guess maybe I'll start with I run my own business. It's Sacred Echoes. Under that umbrella of my business lies all my passions, like many of us who've kind of created life around the things that we kind of love to do in the world. Are privileged enough to do that. I definitely think it's a privilege that I'm able to do that. So I'm an animal communicator. I read the Akashic records. I mentor and teach, and I also am a faculty member and facilitator for something called Horse Medicine Leadership, which essentially is equine assisted learning. I mean, there's so many kind of titles for what that work entails. But equine assisted learning is I'm in Canada, so that's kind of like what we call it here. Some people just call it equine therapy. There's so many different, that one's a hard one because I'm like, whatever you call it, and so, yeah, I have, in my life, I've had 3 horses. I've journeyed with many animals as well, but we're here to talk about the horses. So my first horse, his name was Duke. He's transitioned, so he's kind of like in partnership with me in spirit. I had my second horse, his name is True. And then I have my mare, Addie. And Addie and True are the 2 that I kind of am in the physical with at this time in my life. But I definitely still have a connection with Duke, and he still is a major, major part of my life. So, yeah, that's kind of me.
Okay, immediately what grabs me is Duke. He's coming up.
Yeah. I mean, he comes up for everyone.
Yeah, because I think, death is very hard for us
Mhm.
to deal with in this physical world. So how was that experience for you, if you want to talk about it, and like how does it feel now when he shows up in spirit form in
Yeah.
your physical life?
Yeah, totally. Um, so Duke is an interesting one. So maybe where I'll start is a little bit about me. So I wasn't into horses growing up. I didn't grow up riding. I didn't grow up engaged with them. I wasn't a kid who was like, oh my gosh. Like, I admired horses, but I was an animal lover, not a horse lover. And I never saw myself having horses until he kind of came full on into my life. He had a lot of trauma and he had a lot of baggage. And so, he was 18 years old when I met him, and I was his 14th owner. And I know that his first human didn't reho him until he was 4. So a lot of homes in a short amount of time. And that creates impact. Obviously, that creates impact. And so when I kind of came into his life, he literally said at the time I wasn't doing animal communication. And so I immediately jumped into he needs support. And I need support. I need support in supporting him. Like, it was very obvious to me. He was my initiation into anything spiritual. So I was very mainstream at the time. And when he came into my life, I was like, this is so obvious. He needs major support and help. And um he I say to this day, this is like what's coming up. I'm just going to speak to what's coming up for me, and I promise I'll get to your question. But when the trailer pulled up, he was thrashing so horribly in there that to this day, I'm so convinced that if it wasn't attached to a truck, he would have tipped himself. He was like, you would think I was getting a wild horse that had never been handled that was
Wow.
put into this little like, he was going wild. We actually had to open the trailer into the ring so he could just run off. And when the trailer pulled up and I was within proximity, 20 feet of it, I immediately started bawling. And those weren't my emotions. I know those weren't my emotions. And I just was crying for him and everything he was losing yet again. And so when I got him support that first session, he literally communicated that he didn't care if he lived or died. He was at a point in life where the easier route for him was to transition. So for me, my whole relationship with him was this balancing act of, does he want to be in his body? And if not, I'm going to honor that. And so it really was this commitment to him. And so I think our relationship, like, I loved him dearly. Like, I could cry about him now. Like, we have such a tender relationship. And yet I was always willing to navigate the world in the way he needed me to. And if that meant it was his time, for me, that meant it was his time. And so he gave me many years after that. We kind of moved again, and that move went so smoothly, and there was so much trust built. And then, yeah, it got to a point where his physical body was always an issue. When I got him, he was hundreds of pounds underweight. And while we got him to a good place, he would kind of plateau and go back. Like, his physical body was also failing him as well. And so it did get to a point where he let me know that he was done. But I think, and absolutely, that was devastating. That was so hard for me. He gave me about 6 months. I knew it was coming. He told me in the winter, and his date was, sorry, he told me in our winter, so December here, and then our summer is in June, July. It's when it kind of starts. And so he told me that, he told me when his date was. So I had lots of preparation. Didn't make it easier. Absolutely did not make it easier. But with he and I, that was kind of always a conversation and something I was very willing to engage with. And what was so beautiful about his transition and kind of walking that journey with him is it was such an initiation into my comfort with death and dying. And I support so many people, excuse me, through this with their own animals. It is such a comfortable topic for me. I have witnessed and been at numerous transitions, mostly horses, um, and the beauty that's able to be held in these ceremonies and in that transition. I think that that was such a gift in his transition. It was devastating to lose him in his physical body, but I remember the moment when there was like that. And for some people, this conversation might be really hard to hear, but there was this moment when I felt him leave his physical body and I was overwhelmed with relief. And I think that that was the moment that I was like, oh my gosh, that's how much he was holding. And this was like the absolute right thing for us. And it tears me up to think about it because I don't think any being should have to live like that. And he came so far in his time with me. There was so much trust built. There was so much resilience built. And because of his life experience, I was never going to have like a quote unquote normal relationship with him that someone from the outside would look in and not question what I'm doing and if I have sanity. Like, that was the thing
Mm.
everywhere we went. We were on the outside. I do things very alternative anyways, but anyone who would look at Duke would he was easy to go into your rescuer complex with, or it was easy to go into that kind of dominance behavior and he needs to act a certain, is very easy to kind of go into those things. And so for me, he was such an initiation into horses, but he was also such an initiation into walking that path with him. And walking through transition. And we are still in partnership now. Before he left the physical, he did let me know he was coming back. He would kind of reincarnate and come back to me. That's something that I've experienced, I believe in. Like, it's a huge aspect of kind of my work and my belief system. And so I am in contact with him kind of on a regular basis. Even coming to this podcast, I went out to my horses and connected with him of like, this is about humans and their horses. Like, what do we have to bring forward? So he's such a regular part of my being and my life. And yeah, and I know he's coming back to me. So there's this anticipatory preparation, even in the conversations of like why he's coming back to me. And preparing for that in what he wants is, part of the journey with him.
I just Yeah, I've been like just silently crying the whole time, and my spine is like, oh, when you talked about the trailer, my spine tingled so intensively and like for so long throughout all that. So yeah, I guess right now I just want to say thank you to yourself and Duke for sharing that with us. And I'm just like, I don't really have words right now. So
It was the first time that I realized, again, like, he initiated me into this whole other world. Like, I was going to university to be a elementary school teacher at the time. Like, he just, like, knocked my world upside down. And I think that that moment was the first time that I realized that I was processing people's emotions that weren't mine. Like, that was the first situation, and I was, like, uncontrollably sobbing, and then my human's going, "Okay, this trailer's pulling up. I need to, like, kinda get myself together because this human's gonna ask me why I'm crying. This should be an exciting thing," and here I am, like, sobbing as if, like, my grandma just died. And it's hard to explain that to people. Especially, I didn't feel like his previous owner understood his needs or were meeting any of his needs, or like, when I got him, he was still being ridden by kids, and to me, that was like, who would ever do that? I didn't understand that. Again, I was new into the horse industry. It's very different now. My understanding of things is different now, but to me, I was like, this is like a welfare issue. Like, what's happening here? And so that was a profound experience, one that often comes forward, and he invites me to share kind of frequently because it's such a visceral experience, and even telling the story is such an experience.
yep. The tears aren't stopping. Wow. This
Yeah.
hasn't happened before to me. Not to this extent.
I
Um,
have you know what? And he transitioned quite a couple years ago now, and,
oh,
um, you can hear, like, I'm sitting here and I can, like, talk about it, but there's an energy to our connection, there's an energy to him, like, I think that it's when you're kind of intuitively connected to that, I think that this happens. Yeah.
mm. Um, two questions came up as you were talking. The first was, how do you feel about the phrase "horses are our mirror"?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm like, I could talk about that for an entire hour. So, I think there's layers to this question, and I'm like, how do I want to? Maybe I'll start it through my kind of connection with Duke. Um, I feel like he had so much trauma, and through seeing that and supporting that in him, what it did is it ignited what I had also been through. And so I have uh sexual violence in my childhood, and I wasn't aware of, just like the horse industry is normalized, to me, what happened to me was normalized in my life. And I like, we're going really deep here now, but I'm like, there's no other way of me kind of really getting to it. And here we are. And you're holding a beautiful space. So it feels okay to do that. And hopefully the listeners, if this is too much, skip past or kind of come back when it feels okay to hear this. And I won't get into the details. I'm not going to get into the details. But essentially, what happened to me was normalized. And so what happens over time is you think that it's normal, and then you also don't look at it. And I think the horse industry can be quite similar for horses. When that's your normal for 18 years, you also don't really want to look at it because who's going to hold that space for you? So by offering him this opportunity and engaging in his trauma with him and looking at, okay, you don't care if you live or die. So what does it look like for me to create a relationship and a home with you that has you wanting to be here? And through that journey, he really awoken in me, like, what does it mean for me to look for safety? What does it mean for me to talk about what happened? What does it mean for me to move through some of this? So when he came into my life, he really initiated me looking at my own trauma and what I had been through in my lifetime. And together we went on this journey of healing. And I don't know that I ever would have done that to the degree that I did and have and continue to, right? Because it's lifelong, um, if it wasn't for him. And so I think, I don't know that he was mirroring me so much as we were such a match. And what he had been through was so parallel to what I had been through. And so there was this kind of invitation for the two of us to hold space for each other and to support each other and like show up messily and truthfully kind of together. And I think neither of us had really had that up until that point in our lives. And so it just really was that. And so when we talk about mirroring, I think sometimes I think people often think of like our horse mirroring something that's going on for us. And sometimes I see it as parallel. So that is kind of a layer. In terms of like, if we were to look at like traditional mirroring, I definitely think that animals overall, not just horses, mirror things for us. I think that I've been in 3 car accidents, and I think and I'm really quite crappy about taking care of my physical body. It's like on my things of like, I'm really trying to be more intentional and better about that. But I have 2 horses that have pelvis issues, and I know I'm not dealing with mine. I have body pain, and I have 2 horses that I mean, I've had 3. Duke, same thing with Duke, right? Like, he had body stuff as well, but so I know that they mirror like, this morning so I had to take my dog to emergency last week, and she has a UTI, and just today I was watching my mare pee. I was like, do you have a UTI too? Like, what's going on? And then my immediate thought is, do I have one? Is that why the females in my life are like coming up with this? So I definitely believe in mirroring, and I definitely think our animals kind of take things on for us, consciously or unconsciously, when we feel something's too big to hold or we're not aware of it. Like, sometimes it's so much easier to support that outside of ourselves. It can be easier for us to support that thing in our horse versus like support that thing in ourselves. And so I think that that's sometimes where these things come up in our animals, or they kind of quote unquote take that on for us. You know, it is their physical experience, but in my experience and from my opinion, it's like that can be wisdom. Like, why are they feeling that, and why do they feel the need to do that? I also think that, yeah, we can get, someone who wants to be like super competitive and in the riding industry and blah, 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 like all of that. As a human, we can get a horse that mirrors that for them and wants to be in that. And so to me, I think, the whole grand scheme of mirroring is possible. And I definitely think it exists. I've seen it and experienced it myself way too many times to not believe in that. Like, I'm even thinking of a horse, and I'm obviously not going to say names, but I did an animal communication session with a lady and her 2 horses, so opposite, and yet they identified with her. And the one that was kind of quote unquote harder, he had a little bit more behaviors, talked about how he wanted her to be more like him. She needed to step into that kind of leadership energy in herself more. And so the reflection of that was pretty intense in his physical, but he was like, I'm asking you to meet me here. I'm raising the bar and saying, like,
Mm,
let's go here together. And so I 100% fully believe it in the full gamut of what that could look like.
thanks so much for that. That was
Yeah.
awesome. I think what came up for me as well was like the laws of attraction. Like, we put certain things out in the world, certain things come to us, and we are also drawn by other things to them for a specific reason. Like, for me, the one story that I'm going to share now is I actually believe my gelding Fion manifested me into his life to facilitate his true path in life. So he was born like it was something like the 5th of August 2014 in Europe, and I was on the other side of the world in New Zealand competing in some competitions in elite sport, because that's what I used to do. And the last time I ever was on the podium was the 1st of August 2014, and literally 4 days later Fionn was born, and my whole like athlete career just flopped that year. Like, it just flopped, and one thing led to another, and basically ended up in the country where he was. And then, like, by pure chance, I was on Facebook looking for a horse during COVID to take care of, and I'd given up because I'd gone to a few people and I was like, no, I can't be around conventional horse people. It just doesn't sit right with me. And then one day I open up Facebook, not even on the page, there was just this like horse, and well, 2 horses, and I looked at the photo, I was like, he's weird, he looks really weird, because he's like white with pink nose and like sort of yellowish hair. He just looks odd, and I was like, he's weird. But then this lady was asking, oh, I need someone who speaks English because the training course I do is in English online. And I was like, I speak English. And anyway, he ended up being my horse, and
Wow.
I think his gift is to, because he did this with his old human as well, like, to show you who you are, but at the same time, like, I've helped him grow into who he has the potential to be, and we're still unraveling that.
Mhm.
And that circles back to what else I wanted to talk about, which was meeting horses' needs,
Mhm.
because we've empowered each other by meeting his needs and mine. And so I was wondering if you want to also talk about that, and like, what is it about Duke where you were like, because what amazes me about you is you weren't a horse person,
Mhm.
and the parallels for me and Duke that are coming up, and sorry, you and Duke and me and Fionn, is they're not your beginner's horse at
Mhm.
all, and yet we both had these big like horses to deal with in terms of like their presence and like their past experiences and what they needed from us. So what was it about him that like drove you to be like, okay, what are his needs and how can I meet them?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I'm like, I could go so many different ways. Okay. I think for me, so many people, and because I mentor people who kind of are doing that equine facilitated work, I have the privilege of, talking to a lot of human who are stewarding horses, right? Um, and an interesting conversation that comes up is when people are new into horses in adulthood, they see it as such a disadvantage. They feel like they don't know enough. They feel like they have to kind of go to experts for input. They um, feel less than. And it was really interesting because I had the exact opposite experience. So Duke comes like barreling into my life.
Literally.
Everyone, yeah, literally. Everyone around. We were at a property. There was probably like at the time when we first got there was probably about 20 horses there. They had kind of, an acre paddock, different, all the things. And everyone stalled their horses at night. Like, we were in that type of an environment. And this is like so bad to admit. When I got Duke, I didn't even know how to halter a horse. Like, I
Wow.
didn't know how to get his halter on. Like, none of that. And none of it scared me. I never felt that I couldn't meet his needs. I had one kind of mentor-ish that I, um, would ask questions to. She was more alternative, so it wasn't like I was getting, input from a traditional sense. But what was really interesting about my relationship with Duke is it was so much easier for me to advocate for him than it was for me to advocate for myself. So I'm such a people pleaser. It's something I struggle with and have always kind of struggled with. But when it came to him and his care, when someone would tell me I needed to do something with him or would give me an advice that I, in my whole being, knew wasn't the most supportive or helpful for him, I had no problem dismissing it. And so my lack of horse knowing to me was a huge advantage because I had no expectation and I had absolutely no agenda because I was learning. And I really don't think he could have survived anything but that. So, yeah, we had some behaviors, but I didn't come from a sense of like for example, very often people, even when they are kind of going another way and wanting to be in partnership a different way, for a lot of people who grew up in the horse industry, their instinct is dominance. Lots of times we can override that, but when we get into a sketchy situation, what I see is for a lot of people, they go into dominance. And it's like, I need to correct that behavior, whether they instinctively know it or not. I see it all of the time. I see the kindest humans and people who are advocating for change in the horse industry go into dominance when their safety or their kind of annoyance or their expectation isn't met. And that's not to say all of the time, but it's like when we kind of get into those moments, what's your instinct? That to me isn't dominance because I don't have that layer. My instinct is to go, okay, what's needed? And so with Duke, where that was really beneficial and helpful is when he was struggling. When we first kind of got him, he was so traumatized by having to move so many times that like coming out of his paddock was a huge deal for him. It created a lot of anxiety. He was a cribber, so he was like the windsucker where he like did it because he was so anxious and it helped him. He didn't like chew wood or anything like that. He'd like bite down and suck in and that was his like, hit of the cigarette. Like it just helped calm and relax him. And so he was a very anxious dude. And that to me wasn't wrong. So he came with like a cribbing collar and people tried to repress it. And I'm like, well, my thought is like, why am I repressing the thing that actually helps him right now? Is that a long-term solution? No. But how is stopping him from doing that and taking away the thing that actually brings him comfort? How is that going to support him? And so my kind of mindset with him was completely different than anyone around me and anyone he had been in relationship with prior. And I think that because I didn't have expectation, I didn't have agenda, like for many people, getting a halter on and being able to walk feels very normal. For him, that was a huge hurdle to get over. He would like literally plant himself and he'd just stop moving. And me, I'm like, I don't know how to make you move. Like, it didn't even occur to me to get dominant or get bigger or like, you know what I'm saying? It didn't occur to me to like, how do I make him do this thing? Like, that question came into my mind and I would sit there and be like, well, I can't. So I just have to wait for him to be ready. And so I spent a lot of time just sitting on the grass while I waited for him to be ready to move again, as opposed to forcing movement. And so I think because I didn't have the awareness and I was literally going off of instinct, and I would literally sit in those moments and be like, well, what does he need from me? What can I do to help this? Yes, there were times that I was sitting there because I needed to go back to whatever the thing was and I was crying and I was like, well, I can't get him in and like now I'm late or whatever. Like, yeah, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. And I was like, oh, I'll just give him all the time I want. Like he want like it. There was moments where that was super frustrating to me. And I think ultimately that was the thing that saved him. And that was the thing that helped, is that I didn't have preconceived notions. It was easy for me to hear what someone else said and go like, yeah, that doesn't resonate for me. Like, I remember the one time that I was working on his like stopping with a trainer and she had me use a lunge whip, and on the ground, she was like, just, hit it on the ground, like give him that. And it wasn't working. And so she took it and she started hitting him with it on the hind end. And that was the last time we ever worked with her, because as soon as it happened, it worked. Let me tell you, it worked. He got up and went. And my entire being went, holy fuck, this is so wrong. And I would never, I'm like, I need to create repair. Like, this was so wrong. I can't believe I let someone do that. And so a lot of his and my dynamic too was like him teaching me how to advocate against professionals in the industry when they came to help us. She's a wonderful trainer. If I was to kind of do something again, like, she is someone I would lean into, but I had to be like, that will absolutely never happen again. And it really came from this idea of, like, I didn't feel loyal to anyone. I didn't have this idea of what it should be like. It really, for him and I, was like, what does this look like for us? And what do you need from me in this moment? And I think that him being my first partnership and that being the foundation, because he had so many needs, really set me up for beautiful success in my relationships kind of moving forward.
Yeah. No, that's just amazing. Um, yeah, I sort of say to people, you hear the classic, I can't catch my horse. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, so your horse is in a field and it's with his friends and it has food. So you've got to show it why it's worthwhile leaving that to come with you. So it's like, if you start showing the horse, like, oh, if you come with me, you get a bucket of really amazing tasting food, then they're obviously going to be much more willing to join you and leave that sense of safety and that sense of security. Um, yeah, I sort of started helping someone with their horse not so long ago. And I only helped once, but it was enough for her because she said, yeah, my horse isn't coming. And I explained all this to her. I said, you've just got to show him that it's worthwhile. I said, because he was an ex-racer. I was like, he's come from an incredibly overloading environment, very rigid, very like institutionalized, living in a stable, like not really in a herd environment. I said, and now he has a massive field and he's got lots of friends. So why the hell would he want to come with you? you know?
Yeah, I think to me, like, I hear that. And I mean, every horse is so different. Every partnership is so different. But I hear that and I go, to me, that's a relationship issue.
Mm.
It's not. So in the way that I, like, view horses and I'm in partnership, there is, like, negotiables and non-negotiables. So it's like the things that it's like vet to me is like, I'm not asking a yes or no. This is a thing that
Yeah,
we're doing.
this is happening.
Farrier,
Yeah.
yeah, this is happening. Farrier, same thing. This is like, this is happening. Maybe we need to work with the way that this is held, but unfortunately, your feet are getting done. To me, that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I think that, in my opinion, unless it's medical, everything else is a conversation. And so if
Yeah.
our horse doesn't want to engage with us, to me, I go, well, they don't trust. One of two
You
things is either happening. If we can't catch our horse
humans.
constantly, to me, I go, that's a relationship issue. Your horse doesn't want to engage with you. And why is that?
Mm.
Sometimes that has nothing to do with the human, and it is the fact that they're living this cush lifestyle now that they haven't had before, and so, of course, they don't wanna leave that. So to me, I
Yeah.
go, how do you build relationship in that environment so that they see you and associate this lifestyle with you versus they associate, "I get taken out of this lifestyle when this human shows up."
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that is, like, when we are, I think, bribing, I see this a lot of time. We can't halter a horse, let's bribe them with food. And then where's the choice in that? And so to me, all of this, like, leads to, how do you manage negotiables versus non-negotiables? And how do you become okay with the fact that our horses have voice and choice, or they should. It's like, I might go out there and be like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are so dirty," or "I really wanna spend time with you guys." This has happened a lot because we just recently moved. We moved, like, just over a month ago now, and I've gone out there and been like, "Let's spend time together," and they're like, "No,
Mm.
thank you." And I have to be okay with that because they're creating what it means for them to be here. And they're coming from a herd that was much bigger than this. They've never been by themselves. They've
Yeah.
always been in a blended herd. And so for them, it's like, what does it mean for us to be a herd out here? And yeah, I would say that they consider me a part of the herd, but right now they're laying the foundations for themselves. And so, the other day I went out there and they wanted to engage and I was like, "Oh, let's brush you. You're super, super dirty." And it was an immediate no. And I need to
Mm.
be okay with that. Like, it needs to be okay for them to say no. Like, when my horses don't eat their buckets, like, supplements and nutrition is like one of my number one things. I'm so passionate about it. And so it frustrates me when they choose to not eat their bucket, and if that's the choice they're making, then I look at that as information. I'm not forcing anyone to kind of eat their bucket. And so to me, that's where I look at, like, what's the negotiable and what's the non-negotiable. And if they're saying no to me constantly, well, why is that happening? And
Mm.
how can I create a relationship that has trust? Because just because you trust your horse doesn't mean your horse trusts you. Just because you want to engage with your horse doesn't mean your horse, right? If we're looking at mirroring, it's like, why have these two souls come into contract together? Why do they have a soul contract? I'm of the belief that, us and every single animal, we have soul contracts. And so it's like, well, there's a soul contract there. So then how are we navigating that and how are we working on that? What are they here to teach or show you or whatever the thing is or do with you, right? And it isn't always the ones that, are hard to catch or whatever the thing is, but it's like, how can you look at what it is between the two of you and be open to how something wants to be engaged with? And from my perspective, our animals, it's I think it's different when we have animals who have trauma and things like that, but horses are prey animals. They are so connected to energetics in a way that, like, I wish I could live sometimes. But they are showing us something constantly. They're responding to the energy, they're responding to the resonance and the dissonance. And if we take the time to acknowledge that and look at that and engage with that, there's so much they're communicating and showing. And our human lens, oftentimes, especially when we get into like task mode of like, these are the things I need to do, often get very frustrated with that when they don't follow what we think that they should. But if we're truly looking and we're open to having that feedback, even if it is about ourselves, how does their behavior, quote unquote behavior, show us and tell us information that they are trying to communicate something? And then what is that?
Mm. Morgan is showing up for me right now, like
Mhm.
very much like, "Hi, I'm here." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yes, I know you're here," because she's like, she's fascinating because she grew up, and I have mentioned this a few times already, but she grew up in her birth herd with her mum, her dad, and other horses, and stayed there until she was 2.5. And then that's the age, if she was wild, she would leave her birth herd. And interestingly, her father was wild. So she's very much like the pure horse, I think, or as pure as a domestic horse can be in the sense of connecting to the wild horse. And she will just be like, she'll be very clear with what she wants and doesn't want, and the boundaries of what you're kind of saying about like the non-negotiables. For her, she has non-negotiables. She's like, you do not escalate with me. That gets you nowhere. That's what she says. And she also is like, you need to be unconventional, because you can't school her. Like, you have to negotiate schooling, quote unquote, with her. So you can only ask the sort of more conventional groundwork items in very small amounts, and like over like, you ask a small thing, you ask a step or 2 steps, or like now we've expanded that, we can go a little bit longer. But then you have to leave her and be like, okay, you get grass now and that's fine, and woo, good job, you did awesome. um but she's like, she said to me, when I was trying to teach her to lead on a rope, right? Just like, go forward, She was like, nah. And she showed me, she was like, you have to take me outside, because outside, you showing up as my leader matters for both of our
Mhm.
safety. So that's how I learned to have that conversation with her. And then so we'd go outside for 5 minutes, then we'd go back into the like training space to do a little bit of groundwork. And now it's the same with riding. She's like, oh, you want me to learn to ride? Well, we have to go outside. So
which
she's
is so
very clear. Yeah. So she has her negotiables and
mm.
non-negotiables.
And I
But
think
I
the
also have to
beauty
say to her, we're doing your hooves now. So,
oh, okay, I
and
don't
she's
know
like,
why
nah.
hooves are always a thing. I freaking hate having like I'm just like, can't they just self-manage? I wish we were still at that. Well, I think the beautiful thing about you even sharing that story is if she had a different human who wasn't paying attention, she would probably be labeled all of these different things.
Oh, hell yeah.
But you being her partner and you being willing to kind of listen and it sounds like to me engage with where your lines are, your needs, right? Like you want her to be safe. You obviously are like sounds like in a training situation with her, right? Like we're learning, she's learning. And yet you're also listening to so you each individually have these non-negotiables that you're coming to the table. And so it's like, okay, how do we recognize my non-negotiables, your non-negotiables, and then how do we dance in the middle? And so
Mhm.
you, it sounds like, have done this beautiful job of like, okay, these are my needs. My needs are, probably we have to be safe. There are some horse skills that you do need to kind of learn. And your non-negotiables are these. So then how do we play with that? How is there give and take both ways? How can I honor versus like I think a lot of times humans and maybe not humans who are listening to your podcast in full transparency probably, but a lot of times in the horse industry, people aren't willing to engage with what the horse is asking for. And I even listen to you talk about her and I go, their soul contract would be really interesting to know, like, why are you guys in partnership? Why is it her and why is it you? Like, what is
Mm.
the gift between the two of you? And, you know, I mean, that's obviously where my brain goes because that's a huge portion of my work. But right for whatever that is like she chose you. She
Mhm. She did.
chose to
I
be
didn't.
well, and I think that, even when humans think that they're the ones that chose, I really, to
No,
me, I
she
go, yeah,
chose me. I
yeah.
wasn't even looking for a third horse. She just
Because
popped
everyone's
up. I was
always,
like, oh crap.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I understand that.
and I went to go see her and I was like, no, I can't have a third one. I can't have a third one. And her breeder was like, no, but you're her human. Like,
Yeah,
she was very clear about that. She was like, she is no, you are her human, she said. Like,
yeah.
she's not going to anyone else. She's going to you. And I was like, oh, okay.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would have told you that I wasn't looking for a horse either when Duke like came into my life. So,
Yeah.
like I think that sometimes the biggest transformations come from the horses that we like aren't looking for.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah. I wanted to ask you, because it is a topic I've delved into to an extent on an unpublished episode with an amazing human called Poppy Peach. And we explored what transcending operant conditioning means to us. So I want to ask you, what does transcending operant conditioning mean to you?
That's a good question. Um, I don't know how to answer that. Yeah, maybe you go into what it means to you to give me a second to like think about it if you don't mind. And
So what
then
sparked it up for me was when you
okay,
talked
yeah.
about bribery with the horse and the
Oh, yeah.
feeding, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's positive reinforcement technically,
Mhm.
if we're going to label it.
Mhm.
So then I was like,
Well,
oh, I'd love to pick your brains on
I don't even think
what
that
it
I
means to
always
work
think it's
outside that.
positive reinforcement because I think positive reinforcement is done in a very intentional way.
Mm.
And I mean, I live in Canada, so the horse industry is different everywhere. But like it's common for people to go out with a whole bucket of grain to trick their horses to think they're getting food, to throw a halter on, and now we're leaving. Like that to me, that is not
Oh.
That's
No,
not positive reinforcement
I'm
at
so
all.
naive that I don't
Yeah.
like, because I've never had experience really in the conventional world, so I don't know
Okay.
what people do
Okay. Oh,
normally.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So,
um, so then
yeah.
when you were saying this thing, I was like, oh yeah, positive reinforcement. Oh, but that's like a really cool way of like showing the horse that the halter is a safe thing and like they get nice food. Like,
No. So, I think there is like such a difference between bribery and rewarding.
mm,
And I think that bribery to me is it's like I'm going to trick you into thinking it's one thing so that I can
mm,
come and it can be something different. So like my halter experience, like horses who are uncatchable, right? People will like come out with buckets of grain or treats to like entice them so that they can trick them and get a halter on. To me, that's not positive reinforcement. That is not a
no.
reward at all. I think when we're looking at kind of using food and for not every horse is like driven by food. Like my mare Addie is like a food hound and so is Duke. True for him, that's not really his love language. Like does he love treats? Absolutely. But it's not my kind of go-to for him in terms of like when we're learning something new. He really physical touch and like me just like touching him
Mm.
is such a like connection point for him. Addie's different. She's like, I'll always take that treat. Thank you. Like, yes, that's the way you get to my heart. And so I look at it as like, what is your horse's love language? How can we create safety? And for some horses, yeah, that is food. And have I given like medical stuff is a great example, is like um True got kicked in the face, and so he's got clogged tear ducts that may never kind of go back. And so I have to like clean his face because he just like gets goops and his eyes run sometimes. And so he friggin' hates it. He does not enjoy when I'm like rubbing his face and cleaning his eyes. Um he doesn't like to be like Duke was an interesting horse as my first horse because he loved to be taken care of in that way. True was the opposite, and he really taught me a lot about, like, back off, like, I don't need the level of care that he did. Not every horse needs
Mm.
that level of care, so he just, like, doesn't like when I fuss over him. And but that is one thing that I know if he lets me do, I will give him a treat. Absolutely. As like a I don't even think of it as a reward. When I give it to him, I say like, "Thank you for letting me do that." And then I do the other side. And then I give him a treat and I say, "Thank you for letting me do that." And so to me, I see people use food as a way to entice and trigger horses. Like I've literally seen, this is horrible, and I've only ever seen it once, and it is not common, but I saw someone go out to their horse with a bag of bread. And the way they caught their horse was to throw bread on the ground because their horse loved bread. I'm just like, your horse can't even digest that. Don't even get me started.
Yeah.
But they would throw it on the ground, let them eat it, throw another one, and then halter them.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's how
no.
they'd get them.
No,
So
I showed this lady, like, I literally taught her horses targeting with the halter. I was like, look, now putting their head in the halter is worthwhile because they now are like, oh, food. It's totally
yeah.
different. And then actually, because she's so aware of them and wanting to show up for them in the best possible way, they very quickly progress. So I didn't really need to help her pass that first session, more or less, because she was just like, yeah, now they come willingly because she's had that conversation and they know nothing bad is going to happen now, which
Mhm.
is cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think sometimes, and again, every horse is different, but I think sometimes we need that. Like, what is the thing, even if we think about ourselves, like when I think about going into an unfamiliar environment or learning something new or doing something that gives me a little bit of fear, it's like, what's the thing that's going to bring me comfort? And why is it
Hmm.
not okay for us to think about that for our horses? Why is it
Yeah.
not okay to think about if food brings a comfort? Why is it not okay to train in a positive reinforcement kind of way? I think that's very different than bringing a bucket out and tricking your horse. Um,
Mm.
but, and I think that does that work for every horse? Probably not. But does it work and bring comfort for a lot? Absolutely. And so I think that what's the thing that brings comfort? And not only brings them comfort, but it's like when we as a human, like if we just talk about that lady you supported for a second, having those tools also probably brings her confidence and brings her this like foundation of like, okay, we're working towards something. It's now not just me chasing my horse around. It's like,
Mm.
here's the
And getting
foundation,
frustrated.
because that's helping no one, right? So it brings confidence. Like, it's like, here's the foundation. And then how do I move forward like that? I look at a lot of like the dominance behavior and all of these things that people kind of do that I'm like, I just like, it's one of those things where you're like, I just have to look away. Like if I don't look, I don't have to engage with that energy. But it comes from a place of fear, and it comes from a place of expectation that they feel. So then they're putting that expectation onto the horse as well, right? Like it's such a snowball effect. And I
Mm.
think a lot of times people don't know how to get out of that cycle.
Yeah. A lot of it comes back to the nervous system. It's funny, when you said, so I got two things. One thing that came up was, well, I want to circle back to it in a minute, but love languages of horses. But from that, I also was like, how about comfort languages of horses? Because when you're talking about what brings your horse comfort, so Fion, initially, I was introduced to him using clicker training, because that was the way his previous human managed to actually get through to him. Um, but I used that for a long time. And then at one point, like, I'm not sure when, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I started to notice that this maybe isn't the answer always for him. Like, more often than not, I noticed it added tension. And actually now, so I moved them in April from the Netherlands to the UK. And since I've done that, I've had this rule of like, okay, we're not doing this anymore, because for me, I can see it dysregulates you, and not in a constructive way, in a way that actually you can become dangerous. And we do positive reinforcement if we're playing a little game. Like I have these two dog toys that are like blue and yellow, and we only do that stuff in his field, not outside. So this is where you get your food, but not anywhere else. Outside of that, we have discussions, and we have our non-negotiables as well. So for him, actually, now I would say his comfort language is me showing up for him completely in a non-judgmental way, and in a completely regulated state in terms of my nervous system, and just not being bothered whatever he does. Like the other day, we went on a little ride, and I knew, so I make sure he's regulated and I'm regulated before we go out, so that I can then feel any of his emotions that come up, because now I'm in a place where I do actually feel his emotions and the emotions of my other horses. And I felt the tension. I was like, oh, right, there it is. Yay. And I just thought, we're gonna go into the comfort zone, like out of the comfort zone with this one, because I think that we can benefit from this particular outing and learning from it. And I got off him at one point because he did very well, but then it became too much. So I feel like he's just going to bolt, so I'm just going to get off, and we're just going to regulate together and then walk back. And then when we got near like literally opposite field on the road, the other two were running around like loonies because the sheep were getting their food next door. And Fion was like, my friends are running, I need to run too. And I'm like, no. I sort of describe it as Gandalf, where I'm like, you shall not pass. Like, and I'm like, we're here together. I've got you. We're going to be okay. And I almost say it out loud. I'm like, we're just going to wait. I said, they're absolutely fine. They can handle this without you. I said, we're going to stay here. I said, we're going to then go here. We're going to go through that gap in that tree. I said, but I've got to go first because it's too narrow for us. And I said, and then we're just going to walk through the gate. We're going to wait there. I'm going to take your stuff off, and I'm going to walk you back into their space, because I don't want to just bring him in and him bolt. That doesn't get you anywhere. I was like, we're going to stand together in the fields, wait, then I'll release you. And actually, by the time I released him, he didn't run off. He was just like, okay, la 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 la. So for him, it's that comfort language is like me being regulated.
I think
Um,
what I'm hearing, if I might just add for a second, because I think you're
yeah,
bringing up a
sure.
really important topic, is the comfort level you have in the uncomfortable. So one of the things I really learned with Duke was that first we needed that foundation of safety. And then once we kind of had that, it was like, what does it look like for us to be able to dance with kind of that comfort zone and our resilience? And I think done in a very skillful way. What I'm hearing you say is like, I'm like, oh, she was working on his resilience to be with something that feels
Mhm.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that that in itself is a huge dance. I think a lot of the times people are kind of one of two. It's like we need to push a horse through it because X, Y, and Z, whatever someone told us, or if we don't do it, it's like creating bad behavior, whatever people's perception is over here of like, I just have to push my horse through it. And I've heard many a times from people who grew up in the horse industry that coaches are telling them that they need to push through something as well. So we have the one side of the range that's like, we push through discomfort. And the other side of the range is like, I can't let my horse be in discomfort at all. It's mean of me to engage in discomfort. As soon as they're uncomfortable, it's like we need to go back to a comfort zone. But I think there's this middle ground where we can look at how do we build resiliency? How do we,
Mhm.
first of all, lay the foundation of safety so our horses trust us? And then how do we dance with the resiliency? Because it's not only resiliency for them, but it's us. Like I'm listening to you talk and I'm like, yeah, you're not only building his resiliency, you're building your own to be in the discomfort with him. And you've
Yeah.
looked at what does it look like? How do I take those steps? And that's going to be different for everyone. But your conversation of like, you know what, it might actually be good for us to like edge this line. And then you got to a place where you were like, oh, I've hit his capacity. So we're talking nervous system. Like, we need to go back to the place where there's a little bit more comfort. We don't want to completely overdo it, but it's like there's a middle ground, and it's the same thing for us. There's this middle ground where I can find safety. I can look at what does it look like to engage with discomfort in a way that feels safe for me and feels safe for them. As soon as it doesn't feel safe for someone or someone's like past their tolerance and their threshold, like then we're not creating anything, like we're creating despair versus repair. But even listening to your story, it's like you said, like you had that moment of like, this actually feels like we can engage with this. So you engage with it. You guys got to a place where you're like, oh, we hit our threshold, and you got off, and it's like there's this conversation even going back and like him wanting to get heightened, right? A lot of people, that would be, it's hard for a lot of people to be in that heightened energy, right? Fear comes forward, all of these things, but you were like, take a second. I'm going to explain what's going to happen. I'm going to ask you to be in this with me. You were probably still very connected to how he was feeling, offering reminders, being like, I'm going to be your grounding rod. Connect with me. I'm going to be the anchor in this partnership. And what that showed him is that he can build his resiliency. He can build that range. He can be with discomfort. And so I think it in a skillful way, we are able to, and I think should, engage with discomfort to build that resiliency. And that something someone said to me very early on, and it was in reflection to how kind of the traditional horse industry um was kind of unhappy with the way they were doing things. She said, I want my horses, should anything ever happen to me, I want my horses to be able to engage respectfully in any situation so that nothing bad can happen from them. And so to me, I was like, that's so interesting. She was talking about those traditional, like the horse walks on one side of you and they can't go back and forth and it needs to be done this one way. And how things in the traditional sense here anyways are very like, it needs to be done this way. It's very, very specific. But she was saying, like, what if we get into a wreck and I need to walk them on the other side? What if I need to
Mm.
mount on the other side because I dismount on a trail? Like, she was really talking about, like, how do I, and it stuck with me in a very different way because I'm not a rider, but it stuck with me in the sense of, like, how do I build that resiliency? And Duke taught me a lot about that because that foundation of
Mhm.
safety, like, really he needed in a big way. But it is like, how do we skillfully be with our discomfort and their discomfort to build that and continue to edge that line? And I think that that's a beautiful reflection of what you actually just shared.
Mm. No, thank you for articulating all that so poignantly as well. Um,
Yeah.
I love it when you can have a conversation like, and then someone just like you just did, just kind of pulls it all together in a very, very powerful way. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Um, I want to go down one little area before I
Yeah.
bring up the questions that I ask everyone. And I want to circle back to love languages because you did
Yeah.
talk about those. Um, so we have like the human love languages.
Mhm.
Are those the same? Well, first of all, do you want to say what the human ones are, and then are those the same for horses, or do they have different love languages to us?
Yeah. So I think the way that I am as an animal communicator and the way that um mostly horses, but animals in general have really showed me the best way to understand them sometimes is through symbolism of what it is for us as humans. So, love languages, yes, is a very human construct. And I think that it's an easy way for us, like, a horse isn't gonna go, "My love language is," like, that's not gonna happen, and if it does, wonderful, it's never happened in a session. I've never met an animal that goes, "This is my love language." I use that language as a way to understand their experience, and so as an animal communicator, I find a lot of the times the animals communicate through symbolism, like through human experience as a way for our being to understand their experience.
Mm.
Um, I use this as an example. I had in a soul contract session, I had a horse explain, and I have permission to share this story. I'm not going to give names, but I have permission to share the story, and I just always like to say that because I think permission's a huge piece. But his symbolism and his visual for what it's like to be in partnership with her was this image of being in her grandmother's kitchen with like a warm apple pie baking and that aroma and the feeling and the essence, like it was this deep comfort. And for me, I don't have that experience. Like that wasn't my child, like I didn't have that. And so when I shared that with her, she was like, oh my gosh, like that literally was my relationship with my grandma. Like that literally was something that kind of she was like, I understand that comfort. And so he was talking about their partnership in an experience that he doesn't have. Like he's not going into his quote unquote his grandmother's kitchen. Like the horse isn't doing that, right? That's not happening. He has no context to kind of that apple pie situation, right? But she
Mor-
does.
Morgan's
Pardon?
saying I would. Morgan's saying I would.
Yeah.
She
Well,
says, sorry.
yeah.
She's
Like,
very
and
buddy inny, so
yeah, that's okay. Honestly, I love it. But I think that what that does is it brings context to energy for our being. So when I'm talking about love language or when I refer to love language, what I'm really talking about is like for myself as a human, I have the way that I feel most in connection. And that's different for everyone, right? There's the way that I feel in connection with my sister. There's the way that I feel in connection with my husband,
Mhm.
right? But that intimate connection that I have with my husband is like probably my most authentic love language. It's also part of how it shows up with my horses, right? Because we have that connection. And so just like we have the way that we feel most supported and loved and seen and understood and heard in a relationship, our horses do as well. And so I don't necessarily think I don't in my opinion, nothing fits into boxes. So I wouldn't say like it's like these are the 5 love languages and it's that for everyone. I think for every being it's different, and in every situation and every partnership it's different. And so what I see and how I understand it is like a good example, and one we often teach is that humans love to pet horses. It's such a natural instinct, and horses don't always love to be pet. There are definitely horses that love physical connection, that love that close intimacy, and there's horses that don't. And so I think that when we're talking about love languages, for me, that's my very simple way of saying, like, how does that horse feel the most seen? How does
Mm,
that horse naturally want to engage in relationship? What does that look like for them? Just like not every human, we have those humans, like I'm not, as I'm getting older, it's becoming more, but I'm not a super huggy person. I'm not going to hug you the minute I meet you just because I'm excited to see you. Like that's just not me. And it is for some people. And so it's like we all have the way that we want to engage with the world around us, and that feels comfortable for us. The difference is our horses can't advocate for that other than like leaving us, and then they get all of these labels and all this stuff that's wrong with them because they don't want to engage in the way that we're showing up to engage. But when we're looking at how do they want to engage, what's the way that this naturally wants to transpire, to me, that's looking at what I just kind of very simply, for no other reason other than I think it really is simple for a human to just understand, is like, well, what's their love language? How do they want to be in interaction and engagement? And that might change day to day. That might change
mhm.
in the season, right? Like it's so dependent. Just like I think that it changes for us, I think it changes for them. And if we're willing to look at that for them, that can be a huge transformation in our relationship with them.
Mm. Fionn loves music.
Ah, and you know what's interesting is True hates it. If I have
Really?
anything going in my ears, he will stay away from me. Yeah.
Uh,
Isn't that
no,
interesting?
Fion's really into his tongue drum.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he tried to even play it the other day. Like I offered
Yeah.
him the stick and he was trying
Yeah.
to like make sense of it because he's like, "What? How are you like making this sound?"
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
he's very he's really cool. Like I've never seen a horse pick up a brush and brush the floor. Like he
Yeah.
has complete
Yeah.
understanding of what a brush is and what it does.
Yeah.
And that's the only way, of course, that he can use it is like to brush the
Mhm.
floor. But
Yeah.
he's showing
Yeah.
you like, oh, I know what you're doing with this object
Yeah.
and this is its purpose. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
so intuitive and cool.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
so
I
he
think
does the
it's
same with the drum. Yeah.
yeah, it speaks to like engagement is important for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learning things is important for him, right? Like I think that his way of being in connection is like, to me it sounds like doing things together.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, cool. I think that was a really nice topic to kind of do before we jump into the questions. So thank you for that.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
it was
Yeah.
really beautiful. So the six questions now. It wasn't always that way, but they've kind of grown as I've gone along, and various guests through their conversation have gifted me these questions. So,
Beautiful.
I'm going to do what I did last time. I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up
Okay.
because that seems to roll a bit better.
Okay.
So, the first one that I'm now going to ask you is, what limiting belief have you transcended thanks to horses? Or
Oh,
a
okay.
specific horse.
Yeah. I don't know that I've transcended it so much as it's probably the one that I'm working with and moving through kind of the most with horses. Um, and I would say that's like worthiness and being worthy of being loved,
Mhm.
being worthy of being in the space, being worthy of healing, being worthy of speaking my truth. Um, I shared earlier, like I was a chronic people pleaser, and through having to advocate for Duke and some really uncomfortable conversations, I have learned that I'm worthy of standing up for myself. I'm worthy of standing up for my horses. I'm worthy of taking up space. Um, even like having the invitation to come on this podcast and like share my voice and speak, like Brittany 10 years ago would have avoided this and said like, well, I have nothing worthy of sharing and speaking into the space and into the world. Like I don't have anything that people would want to hear. And so I think that it's something that I think I will always work with. I think it's part of what my soul is here to move through in this lifetime. I think part of my lived experience brings some of that out. But I think that that would be the biggest thing and my biggest limiting belief that I have navigated with them.
I'm crying again. It's the same for me. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And probably
moving on.
so many out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big thing, isn't it? And yeah, I think through various life experiences, we all have it at some point taken away from us.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, like to start to connect to it and hold it again is like a huge thing.
Yeah.
And
Like
it,
even if
yeah,
we were to like look at the school system, I don't know about the school system there, but the school system here, and I was a
I
teacher in
hate it
elementary.
here.
I taught kindergarten. It's like sit down and shut up and you
Yeah,
listen to me because I'm the one that has the information to share, not you.
I was the dumb kid because I'm born in June, at the end of June, and I was in school with kids like when you start off school in the UK. Like I was 3 years and 2 months old or whatever, and I'm in school with people born in September who are like almost 25% in terms of our live time on the earth older than me, and they were the smart kids.
Mhm.
So already from that young, I was
Mm.
told you're not good enough.
Yeah. The whole reason I went to school to be a teacher was because um in my entire education, there's one teacher, and that includes university and college. There's one teacher that I would say cared about me. And I struggled to read until grade like 4 or 5. And so that was one of the main reasons I went into school was because I was so determined never to make a child feel the way that I felt in school.
Mm.
And I was so determined for me, and one of the reasons I went into kindergarten is because like that's the first year of almost 13 years, like, because we go to grade 12. It's like, even if you just go through to grade 12 and graduate and don't go beyond that, it's like that's setting the foundations, and we're setting up foundations in a really friggin' crappy way. Like, your story is like a great example of like, you should have never felt like that. And you probably, I mean, you said it yourself, your first year in school felt that way.
If
Yeah.
not earlier, who knows? But
Exactly,
it's
right?
incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like we're told so often that we're not enough, in multiple different ways, and we don't necessarily realize it until we're way older. But um, yeah, it's a hard thing to face, and it takes a long time to transcend. And I
Mm.
think a lot of us will probably be transcending it for the rest of our lives,
Yeah. No, 100, I just
because
don't. Yeah.
there's always little flags and little triggers and little moments where you're like, oh, like,
Well, even if we look at the conversation we had earlier about someone's horses running away from them and not
mm-hmm.
wanting to be haltered, if we just look at what that does for a human internally, not good enough. My horses don't want to be near me.
My horses hate me.
Correct. And then that stems into like, I'm going to label them now.
Yeah, yeah,
As a way of
basically.
defending myself so that it isn't a reflection of me, it's a reflection of them.
Because what the bullies do, yeah.
It's an interesting, it's all interconnected in my opinion.
um, One little question before the next question.
Yeah.
Do you work with kids now?
No, no.
Okay.
I left teaching 3 years ago now. I mean, for many different reasons, but it essentially came to a head where I just like I had to get out, and
Mm.
I miss my connection with them. I still sometimes cry over the fact that I had to leave. Um and I say I had to leave. I chose to leave. I just wasn't ready to work in a system that wasn't ready for the change that I was trying to create. It would be like me trying to go into the traditional horse industry. Like I just
Yeah.
like it wouldn't work. Um yeah, right? So I left And it feels good to say that, but I absolutely miss it because I know that my perspective so many little beings need, but I know I'm also where I'm meant to be. So no, I don't work with
Mm.
kids anymore.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that was there or not,
No.
in what you do now. The next question so this comes from the book The Woman Who Runs with Wolves, but also Zirconia, my mare, because she took me down the spiritual path, number one, and she needed me to rewild her and in turn rewild myself.
Mhm.
That's kind of been my purpose in her life. I mean, if we were to do a soul contract, that's probably what ours is.
Well, that was my first.
Um,
I was like, well, there's their soul contract or a
yeah, there
portion
you
of
go.
it.
Verbalize that one out loud. Um, what or where makes you feel wild?
Oh, I'm like wild in what way? I think, words are an interesting thing because it's like, what's the definition of the word wild? Um, I might say where I feel the most powerful is maybe the way I'll speak to it. Because when I think of wild, I think of power. I think of like
Mm.
being in one's full essence outside of constraints. It would probably be when I'm teaching or facilitating the work with the horses. I think it is like it gives me goosebumps to even think about. It's so transformational. It is so life-changing. In my opinion, and the way I hold the work and what I do, I know, there's so many different trainings that hold it differently, but at the root of how it's held in this work, it's the horse first. And it just creates these beautiful opportunities to drop in and truly be seen by these beings in a way that so many people never have. And so I say all the time, like, I wish every single being on this planet who's ready could experience this work because it's so transformational. And I don't say that from a place of like, it's my business and all the things, but like from a human to human, it, I would say the whole reason I was able to step away from teaching is because of this work, because I realized what it was doing to me. And it changed me so much. So I would say when I'm in the place of either supporting someone in that or teaching someone how to facilitate it, like it just is such a experience. I'm so lit up by it. And to me, I just feel like almost like my truest self in those moments. So that's my answer for that one.
It's really, really, really cool. I love hearing everyone's answers because they're so different.
Yeah.
And the meaning of wild is so different as well.
Yeah.
So thank you. This next one comes from so I'm really terrible at music. Like I cannot play the violin or whatever.
Yeah.
Used to get so annoyed. Like when I had to do it at school, I hated it. Anyway, but music is very symbolic to me in terms of like memories or
Hmm.
emotions. It really transports me back to specific things. So my question is, what music reminds you of your horse? And it could be all three or just one of them, whichever.
Oh, I'm gonna have to admit this. I'm not a music person. So I listen to music constantly. My sessions all have music. I constantly have music going in my space. But if you were to ask me what type of music I listen to, who I listen to, any song names, I couldn't even tell you. I I'm one of those. I will find a Spotify playlist that I enjoy,
And just
or
whack
I'll
it on.
like type in the energy of what I want my music to be, and then I choose based on that. Um, so I love that question, and I would not say that music is in my life enough to even relate one of my horses to a song.
And True would just be like, hell no.
Yeah, no, he would be hell no. He's a hard hell no. I remember the first time I went out there with earbuds in and I was listening to music. I don't even remember. It was a frequency and I can't even remember which one it was. And he like he just stayed clear and I was like, what is happening? And then I turned my music off and I realized that that's what it was. So he'd
I
be
remember
offended.
once I was listening to the Macarena whilst I
Oh yeah.
was doing hay nets. So I just started doing the Macarena. And then I saw the horses just looking at me. And I was like, oh, I was just like, yeah, this is the dance, guys.
Yeah. This is what it is. I used to, like, run and play with Duke all the time, and he, like, loved that, but we never did it to music, so it would have been interesting to have tried that with
Mm.
music because I feel like he actually would have enjoyed it more.
Maybe you can bring it to him next time.
Yeah, wow, that was
Yeah,
my when
see
within this
see where it
conversation, I was thinking about
goes.
that.
There
Yeah.
you go. Next question, and you can invite any one of them or all of them. I like this one. It's cool. If your horse was part of this conversation, and with you specifically because of what you do, it's even more like powerful. What do you feel they'll say about you?
About me. Oh, that's a vulnerable question. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh. What would they say about me? I'm like, who wants to step forward? Um, I'm like, so this all like feeds into the self-worth of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to speak about myself this way. But um I think the thing that they would probably say the most, and I think all three of them in different ways would really wrap. I almost want to say like the word dedication and my perseverance to, in my opinion, right relationship and right connection with them. Um And it's funny because I went out there this morning and I was like, "Guys, what do we wanna say?" And the thing I heard that I was like, "Oh, shit," was they were just like I'm sorry, I keep swearing. I hope that that's, like,
It's okay.
semi-okay, and I'm sorry if it's not to the listeners. Um, the thing I really heard from Addie was, like, "Be yourself." And so
Mm.
I think that even to even as I sit here and I go, like, "What would you guys say about me?" It's this experience of energy that they're bringing forward. It's not even necessarily words, but it's like and that's why I said, like, maybe the word would be, like, dedication, because it's like they're showing me the energy of that fierceness to, like, be on their side and to advocate for their needs and to be in relationship with them in a way that feels really great for kind of them individually, and I think that, um I feel similarly when I support someone with their animals as well. Like I really kind of want to bridge that connection. There's this desire in me to um, support and transform um with them and with others, and it's like it's this like the energy of like this fierceness that kind of comes forward um when I kinda connect with them about what they would say about me. I also think, like, much to True's dismay, I think all 3 of them would, like, the label of, like, caretaker and caregiver and nurturer, like, though that, that would come forward, like, that feeds a huge portion of who I am. Um, but yeah, that's kind of maybe how I'll, like, articulate that.
Just, having something come to me. Uh, so I have an image of you on like a rock, like a rocky, like a ridge, I guess, like a very
Oh,
tall ridge with like a deep orange sunset, and you're holding like a stake, and it's like a wild warrior, and you've just got this presence about you, and they're there with you. Um, I've not done this before. Right. Is Duke, because this came up earlier, is he or was he black and white paint?
no,
No.
no. So Duke was a bay.
Mm-hmm.
No, he was Duke was yes, Duke was a bay. I always get chestnut and bay like mixed up. I'm like, wait, which one has the
Bay.
black mane and tail?
Because
So
there's
Duke,
one bay, and then there's a black and white one. I don't know why.
so Duke was a bay. True is a chestnut. And Addie is a black and white paint. And then
That
Duke
Addie then.
has
That
given
was
me,
Addie.
yeah, it was probably Addie. Addie is like I kind of say she's like Duke is the one that initiated me on this journey and started so much of my transformation. Like when people ask me to talk about like my journey here, it's like I can't talk about that without him. Addie would say she's the CEO of my company. Like she just
Mm.
like thinks she runs things. She just likes to be the forward. She's super, super social. She really likes to engage. Like so
Okay,
yeah,
so I had those three colours
yeah,
in the horses, but not the right horses.
yeah.
And then oh, it was like on the stake there was a crystal, and I think it was a dark coloured crystal, like a dark
Mhm.
green. So, and this has happened on another podcast episode where I've had an image of someone and their horse, and this is the one that came up for you guys. So,
Wow,
just thought I'd
interesting.
share that.
Yeah,
Maybe
thank
I'll
you for
try and
sharing.
draw it sometime.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would accept that if you did. I
Yeah,
think
I'd
that
love to
like
try. Like, because
yeah.
I actually did it earlier, the one from the previous podcast. I'll share it on here now because it's kind of cool. I did it mostly with my eyes shut, but then like so I drew the basics with my eyes shut, and then I like let the rest I filled in the rest seeing, because otherwise it probably
uh,
would have been very messy. But
Yeah.
like that's what I drew.
Oh wow. That's very cool.
Yeah,
Are you an artist? Like do you draw?
I'm getting back into it. Yeah,
You are, yeah. I'm like, that's actually
yeah.
very, like, done very well. Like,
So I'm playing with like channeling drawings, I guess, or paintings.
mhm.
So I think that's one I'm gonna try next. Anyway,
That's beautiful. Yeah.
bit of a
Well, like,
tangent.
I don't think it's a tangent because I like what you experienced from them was exactly like what I was explaining. It's an essence. It's not necessarily like
Yeah.
words to come through. It's like this visual, it's this experience, it's this essence. And I think that that's the beautiful thing about intuition and connecting with animals
Mm.
is we are interpreting essences and we're interpreting energy, and so sometimes it is easier to do that through visuals. It's one of the things that I say it all the time. I get so many visuals in a session. I severely wish I was an artist because the visuals are so, that's why I asked you that. I was like, how did she do that? Because like my kindergarten students used to make fun of my drawings. Like I am not good at drawing.
That's,
So
I
I
mean,
don't,
if they're making fun, that's bad.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
it is bad. And that was like stick people. So it's just like I'm not an awesome. I'm just like I wish I had that skill and I don't. But that's beautiful that you do.
okay, I'm gonna work on that
Yeah.
because that seems to be the thing now. Anyway, um, what what messages do you want to send out into the horse world about horses?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Um, I think if I was like really to bring it down into one thing, it would be that my hope, and I'm gonna say this, I'm getting full body goosebumps, that we would start looking at our horses as individuals and not a representation of your training and the horse industry. Um,
Hmm.
I think that when we are willing to let go of what we've learned and what we know and show up in our partnership for who they are and what's showing up in this moment, it's so transformational to not only see our horses that way, but it opens up an opportunity for them to see us in the same way. And I think a lot of the time when we get disarray and despair in partnerships with horses, it's because there's a piece of us that feels vulnerable or a light has been shone on something that maybe our ego tells us that we don't want to engage with because it's unsafe to look there, or um the reflection in the mirror and the feedback from our horse is what we consider like quote unquote negative. But I think the thing that we need to remember is our animals, horses don't think like that. They aren't telling stories. They're responding to energy, they're responding to frequency, they're responding in the moment. And if we're willing to let the way that our brain operates go to truly engage with that, it would be so different and so transformational for so many relationships.
Yeah. And the last one, what gifts have you received from your horses that keep showing up for you?
Um, I mean, like everything. Um, I think the thing, and it's gonna go back to my limiting belief. I think the thing that it showed up this morning and I already spoke to it here, is like, it's okay to be me. It's okay to be me. It's okay to show up in how I feel. It's okay to have a unique journey to anyone else. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to excuse anything. I don't, like, it's okay to be me. Like, who I am has a place in the world. Who I am, I almost want to say, like, there's magic in the world. And I think that that goes for every single one of us. Like, it's okay to be ourselves. And when we give the permission slip to our horses to be themselves, they've already given us the permission slip, but what it does is it enables us to be ourselves. And so, I think that that's the thing that continues to come forward. And when I'm in kind of my false self and getting inside my head, it's like that's the thing that they anchor back into, is like, it's okay to be you. It's okay for us to be different. Even moving here and taking them away from the herd, like, that they were in, I had a huge people please. Like, I didn't want to leave and move because I was thinking of the impact of the other humans there and all of that, right? But they're like, "But this is your truth and this is your path." And so I think what
Hmm.
they really do is anchor me back into that.
Yeah. Well, that is brilliant little last sentence to those questions. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, my final thing is, where can people find you? Of course.
Yeah. So people can find me. My business name is Sacred Echoes. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. Instagram is probably the most, like, way I engage. I always have a hard time of like, where's my Facebook notifications? Where's my messages? Like, it takes me a little bit to navigate things. So Instagram is just like way more my speed, but I'm on both. My website is, www.sacredechoes.com. We talked about it a little bit. I do have a podcast. It's called The Grounded Communicator, so you can kind of listen to episodes over
Hmm.
there. But
I love
those are
the
kind
name of it.
of
It's such
so
a cool
that
name.
uh I struggled with the name and I still sometimes do because I don't think it's like, but that came through, that channeled through from the Akashic Records is what the podcast's name wanted to be. So it kind of named itself, but I think it speaks to in my opinion, like my work and what I hope to hold in all areas of who I am over there in the space.
Can I
So thank
very
you.
quickly ask you what Akashic records are?
Yeah, yeah. So, as soon as I landed and I was like, "Oh, this is a whole other conversation." But the Akashic records are essentially, and everyone has a different interpretation and experience of it. The way that I open the records and channel for other people is essentially the Akasha are, if you were to imagine a library of all of your soul's experiences. So past, present, and future. Every exchange, every moment is like written into the blueprint of your soul. And so when we open the Akashic records, we're opening it in present time, but there's this ability to connect multidimensional. And so some people channel other languages, some people channel other beings and planets and all of the other stuff. It's true to the name, the grounded communicator. I really like things to be clear and concrete to what's wisdom in this lifetime that you can walk away from the session with and really feel grounded and rooted in, like, this is what moving forward kind of looks like. And so when we go into the Akashic records, I mean, you can go into the Akashic records for like items, for horses, for animals in general, for yourself, for land, for houses. Like, you can, the Akashas for kind of anything that has kind of that blueprint and that any experience kind of here. And so when you go into the Akashic records, or when I do, what I experience is I'm connecting with your highest self. And so your higher self is like that, kind of the way that I explain it is like, if we were to take away the human conditioning, who are you as a soul? That's kind of your highest self. And so we kind of can gain wisdom from your higher self about things that you're moving through in this lifetime, or you have questions about, or things you want to clear, or any of the things. So it's essentially the experience of your soul over lifetimes, past, present, and future. And so, yeah, I mean, I could go on, but like, maybe
No,
like,
thanks for that.
yeah, in a condensed version, like, that's essentially what it is and how I experience it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for an absolutely wonderful conversation. Like,
Yeah, you're so well. Thank you for having me on. It's been great to have this. Yeah.
hmm and I think that's the most I've cried so far on an episode. So,
I'm honored.
so that's cool.
Yeah, I'm
That's
honored.
absolutely fine. Anyway, I'm just gonna do a tiny little shout out because I realize every time I do an episode, I forget to do this. I will shout out to a colleague of mine because she probably doesn't want to be named, but she composed the music for my podcast, and I keep forgetting to mention it. But yeah, she wrote the lyrics and harnessed what she feels horses mean to me. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's beautiful.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yay, I did the shout out finally. Anyway.
And maybe this will give her like a little nudge to like maybe
She'll
offer
just be
this
like,
to people. Because I'm like, what would
exactly.
the music for my horses be?
Hey, this is for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Nudge, nudge,
bye.
poke, poke.
Right.
I can't remember a time before you walked into my life. You took the broken parts of me and made it all alright. There's an easiness to your grace that I will never know, and every day this feeling only grows, and every moment with you just bleeds into one. Your easy smile greets my eyes just like the morning sun, a reflection of my soul, one heart that beats for two. Just know, my love, that I will carry you.